Hello, my beautiful friends. I am Laurel Bleadon-Maffei with Illuminating Souls, welcoming you to this episode of Sleepy Bedtime Blessings, a podcast designed to help you rest, relax, and fall asleep, all while deepening in your connection with your beautiful team of angels who love you so. If we're meeting for the first time, I am an angelic practitioner, a spiritual teacher, and an encourager of souls. And I do this through one-on-one angel sessions, soul mentoring, and a variety of classes designed to inspire your spirit. And you can learn more at my website, illuminatingsouls.com. And you can also find me on Facebook, and my page is Illuminating Souls. So lots of ways that we can connect. And speaking of connecting, if you are enjoying this podcast, I would love to hear from you. Feel free to send me an email or leave me a comment on Facebook and let me know how this podcast is working for you. I'd also love to know some of your favorite episodes. And if you feel so guided, it would be wonderful if you would leave a rating and a review on iTunes. So thank you so much for your support. I'm so grateful to have this time with you. And for now, the angels and I are going to help you come into a beautiful space of rest and light. So I'm going to invite you to take some nice deep breaths in, just allowing the love of your angels to come closer to you. And if you're new to the world of angels, they are divine celestial beings. I experience them as non-denominational. I believe this universe is filled with love for each one of us and every molecule of life and consciousness. And the angels are one of the ways this love shines upon each one of us. So this podcast is designed to help you come in to a soothing, comforting space where you can rest and relax. Now, I know many of you listen during the day, and I get to keep you company, which is wonderful. However you choose to use this podcast, you have my love and support. And if you are using it as a sleep tool, here are some suggestions for you. First off, curl up in bed or wherever it is you are planning on sleeping in this moment and let yourself get comfortable. I love bedtime. I have a wonderful waking life. But I so look forward to the end of the day when I get to crawl in bed and I pull the blankets up just so and I fluff the pillows. I definitely am a big fluffy bed kind of girl. I sleep with lots of pillows. I have a body pillow, which I don't know if you've ever tried one, but if you are a side sleeper, they are luxurious. I've been using them for years and they really help me find comfort physically when I'm sleeping. So I invite you to cozy on up and snuggle on in and pull your blankets up just so. This podcast is going to last for about an hour. So in the first part is the part we're in right now, where I welcome you and bring in the angels and shine some light your way. And then in the second part, I read to you or tell you a story or ramble for a bit. But it will be about an hour long. And that's because when I listen to sleep podcasts, I won't even think about listening if the episode is less than 40 minutes long, because then I feel all of this pressure to fall asleep. Whereas if the episode is an hour long, I almost always am asleep before the episode ends. So that's why my podcast has hour-long episodes. And I sleep with earbuds in. They don't bother me. And I turn the volume down low, lower than I would if I were listening to an audiobook, because I want to have to reach a little bit for the narrative, because then it's easy for my consciousness to release the thread of whatever it is I'm listening to and then drift off into that great mystery of sleep. So I invite you to experiment a bit and see what works for you. If you're new to the world of podcasts, you may not know this, but most podcast apps have a sleep timer. I use the Apple Podcast app, and there is a sleep timer right there. And so I usually have the podcast app turn off at the end of my episode. If you're using a different app, all the apps have sleep timers, so be sure to set your sleep timer so you're not listening all night long unless you want to. There are a lot of people who set up playlists so that the podcast is playing for them all night long, which is another option. I will share, though, from my perspective, that doesn't work for me because it infiltrates my dream time. And I have had so many dreams where I'm in the narrative of a dream, but the podcast is playing and I'm trying in the dream to turn the podcast off. And it's really weird and frustrating. So I typically do not let it play all night long. I set the timer to end at the first episode that I'm listening to. And then if I do happen to wake up at 3 a.m., I can always turn on another podcast and again set the sleep timer. I actually did that last night. I'm listening to a wonderful podcast called The Sleepy Bookshelf. And right now she is reading Anne of Avonlea, which is the sequel to Anne of Green Gables. And I've never read Anne of Avonlea. I have listened to her read Anne of Green Gables, which I absolutely loved. And I've watched Anne with an E, that's airing on Netflix here in the US. And I haven't made my way into the story of Anne of Avonlea. And it's so funny because I really want to hear the narrative, but I don't want to listen to it like an audiobook during the day. So I have been on the third episode for about 3 nights now. I get about 10 or 15 minutes in and then I zonk out. So I keep going back to the episode and trying to figure out what the last part is that I remember. So I think it's going to take me dog years to get through that whole book, but it puts me to sleep, which is the intention. So if you don't make it all the way through one of these episodes, it's totally okay, I promise, not to share anything so important that you will feel like you miss out. It's designed to be a rambling, sort of boring, sort of interesting narrative for you. I purposefully speak to you in this low tone. Sometimes it's a bit monotone. And it is because the intention is for you to get to drift off, feeling the love of your angels, right? Feeling like you drifted off with a loving, rambling voice that is friendly and light-filled wishing you the sweetest of dreams. So, I invite you to take a few nice deep breaths in, getting comfortable in your body. You know, the reason I say that all the time is I don't know how it is for you, but whenever the angels come in and say, just go ahead and relax your body, I become aware of all these strange places where my body had been tight. And I sort of breathe that movement and spaciousness in, and I think to myself, I had no idea I was carrying tension there, wherever there is in that moment. So join me in taking some nice deep breaths in, allowing your body to relax, letting any of the tightness of the day just float away. And I'm going to call the angels in. They are here already, but I love sharing this moment with you. So beautiful angels on high, I invite you to join us here. And I ask that you infuse this broadcast with waves of love, with goodness, with healing, with joy, with comfort, and with light, in service to each of our beloveds listening to this message. And angels, I ask that you bring waves of love to each one listening right now so that they can easily and gracefully drift off into a good state of rest. I ask that you clear from each of us any fears, any worries, just lifting them up into the highest realm where they can be transformed in service for the highest good of all concerned. And angels, I ask that you bring forward the vibration of well-being. And dear ones, just breathe that in. Breathe in the invitation, the concept, the essence of divine well-being. Knowing that you are precious in all this world, that you are a blessing here on earth, that this world is better because you are here. And the angels are so deeply grateful for this opportunity to be present with you, to connect with you, and shine this love upon you now. And as you rest, the angels will bring to you waves of inspiration. It's one of my very favorite ways to create in this world is through divine inspiration. So give yourself permission to open to your inspired heart, to make space for something new to be born, something that will delight you, something that will help you connect with joy, your creative spirit, that will help bring forward enthusiasm in your waking life. And you don't need to know what this is. You don't need to know if this is even possible. Just breathe, allowing your spirit to open up to the light that is the truth of you. You're a divine being having a human experience. You are an ever-evolving being. And right now, goodness is flowing to you. Well-being is flowing to you. Beauty is flowing to you. And just breathe with us, allowing yourself to receive the light that is here for you. I am so grateful to be with you in this moment. There is a beautiful sphere of love that surrounds you, and this love is rippling throughout your entire home to everyone who dwells with you, your loved ones, your pets, your plants, your crystals. And then this is rippling out to everyone that you love. You don't have to send this love. The angels are sending this on your behalf. So as you rest, this love will ripple into the world. And my hope is that you have the sweetest of dreams. And that when you awaken in the morning or whenever your wake-up time is, you will feel refreshed. You will feel the brightness of your true spirit. And you will remember that you are loved. And so, my dear ones, you just stay cozy and allow yourself to drift off whenever you are ready. The angels will be with you. And while you rest, I'm going to read to you and tell you some stories and go on some adventures of exploration together. So in this episode, we are going to go into the Wayback Machine. And I don't know how far back we're going because the inspiration for this episode is an old community cookbook that I purchased off of eBay a few months ago. As many of you loyal listeners know, I have become utterly enchanted with community cookbooks. And what they are is they are compilations of recipes that different community groups would put together. So temple sisterhoods, church groups, PTOs. The one that I have here is from a community service organization called the Ridge Service Guild. And best I can tell, this was published somewhere between the late 1930s and the 1940s. It doesn't have a publication date. Now, I didn't know what the Ridge Service Guild was when I purchased this, and I also didn't know that they were located in Chicago, which is the area where I grew up. So that was kind of a kismet moment when I started looking at it once I received it. And I did do a little bit of research to find out about the Ridge Service Guild, and so let me share with you about them. So I'm reading from a Chicago Tribune article that was published in 1952, and it says, the Ridge Service Guild, composed of 50 women who live in the Beverly Hills area, and that would be the Beverly Hills area of Chicago, not the one in Los Angeles. And this would have been on the south side of Chicago. So the Ridge Service Guild, composed of 50 women who live in the Beverly Hills area, plus a small associate group, began in 1924 as a sewing group which worked for the Red Cross, the Visiting Nurse Association, and other charitable causes. The group now devotes its efforts to the aid of dependent and handicapped children, and for the last 10 years, its most lucrative project has been the Valentine Day Dollar Drive. So that's what this article is about, their Valentine Dollar Drive. And the reason I think this book was published somewhere in the late 30s to the early 40s is the cookbook committee consists of Mrs. H.W. Eidman, chairman. And so I looked up the Ridge Service Guild with her name, and there is an article in the 1941 Chicago Tribune about the dollar drive, and it does reference her as the chairman. So I think this may have been published somewhere in the late 30s to early 40s because of what I was able to discover. So this cookbook starts off with a dedication. And it says, "We dedicate this book to the friends of the Ridge Service Guild, those who have contributed recipes, those who have made our charities possible by purchasing this book, and those who have so generously subscribed to our advertising. We ask our friends to patronize these advertisers." And so there are many advertisements in here, which I will also share with you. So it lists the cookbook committee with Mrs. Eidman, who I already shared with you, Mrs. Carr, Mrs. Anthony, Miss Middleton, Mrs. Tuthill, Mrs. Stebbins, Mrs. Van Stone, and Mrs. Graver. Then there is an ad for cateresses. So I guess instead of being a caterer, you are a cateress, available in Beverly Hills. Mrs. Clarence Ethel Berthel, because again, the women are known as their husband's name, Miss Emma Gustafson, and Miss Julia Shriver. So in case you need your next party catered. And then there is the front cover that says Charities of the Ridge Service Guild, the Martha Washington Home for Dependent and Crippled Children, which is not a term we would use anymore. But that's what it says, and Morgan Park Home for Dependent Children. And the Martha Washington Home is at 4448 South Michigan Avenue, for those of you who know Chicago. On the next page, there is an ad for Libby's tomato juice, and it starts with an image of a woman on a telephone, and she is holding the receiver to her ear. It's one of the old telephones that has both the speaker and the earphone. And it says, and be sure the tomato juice is Libby's. Its gentle press flavor is so much the best. As if she would actually be saying this to somebody on the telephone. Gentle press is the secret of an incomparable flavor in Libby's tomato juice, a special patented way of taking the juice from red ripe tomatoes rushed and dewy fresh from the vines. Libby's is richer, fuller, grander in flavor, and it is a dependably excellent source of vitamin C. And then we come to the beverage section, and there's an ad for Johnson Drug Company with free deliveries, a professional drugstore, over 8,000 prescriptions filled last year. So we start off, the first recipe of this whole book is hot chocolate. Who does not like a great cup of hot chocolate? Okay, so here we go. 3 squares of chocolate, add half a cup of water, put over a low flame, stir, add half a cup of sugar and a dash of salt. Stir as chocolate burns at low temperature and boil 5 minutes. Cool and then fold in half a cup of cream whipped and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. May be kept in refrigerator. When ready to serve hot chocolate, put a ladle of mixture in each cup and fill the cup with hot milk. From Mrs. Walter Barker. You know, I'm glad they said that you put some of this mixture into a cup of hot milk, because I was a little worried that this was a half a cup of sugar. Okay. Then we have something very interesting called Bohemian tea. So what might be in that? We've got 6 quarts of boiling water, 5 teaspoons of orange pekoe tea, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ground cloves, 1 quart of orange juice, the juice of 3 lemons, and 1 pound of sugar. Place the tea and spices in a cheesecloth bag. Let the bag stand in the boiling water for 3 to 5 minutes. Remove the bag from water and kettle from the flame, and then add the other ingredients. And this is from Mrs. H.B. Pillsbury. And then there are a bunch of cocktails, which I'm not going to be reading to you, but there is an ad for a refrigerator. This is the Fairbanks Morse Company, and it says, yes, there is a difference in refrigerators. Only the new Fairbanks Morse Conservador refrigerator offers you, and then in capitals, Conservador, because that, I guess, is their whole brand, self-sealing crisper, sliding fruit drawer, utility storage compartment, heat wave proof freezing unit. Come in and let us show you how long this new refrigerator will run on 1 penny's worth of electricity at your rate. See the penny meter test. Look behind the nameplate before you buy. You'll be glad you did. And this is what it looks like. It's a relative, for our standards for sure, a relatively small refrigerator. And it looks at the bottom like there's a section. This must be the utility storage department, because it looks like they have potatoes at the very bottom of it. But, certainly having a refrigerator was a game changer when it came to running a household. Must have been an exciting time. Okay, we're going to skip over the cocktail section. But now we're going to get to the appetizers. So I don't know if you're a canapé fan, but there is a cucumber canapé. Peel large firm cucumber, cut into thick slices. Scoop out the center with a cutter, leaving only rim. Put each piece on a thick slice of tomato and fill center with cold chopped white meat of chicken, mixed with mayonnaise, and decorate with chopped capers. Tuna fish may be used in the place of chicken. I am so glad that I live in a lifetime where I don't have to make those. Cheese canapés. 1 cup of grated cheese, 1 egg well beaten, a little mustard, paprika, and a pinch of salt. Cut toast, pile mixture very high on untoasted side of bread. When ready to serve, toast on broiler. Decorate with mayonnaise and slice of stuffed olive, and that recipe comes to us by Mrs. A.J. Deniston Jr. Now we're at the bread section, which I love bread. So there is a popover recipe, and it looks like she hand wrote in a cup of milk, whoever owned this book, because it says 1 cup of flour, half a teaspoon of salt, 2 eggs, and 1 tablespoon of butter. And then she wrote in 1 cup of milk, so it may be that there needed to be a correction with that. There is date muffins, and I love how they give you so few instructions. Nowadays, for a recipe, we need to know how to do everything. What to stir in when, how long to stir things for. But this is the entire recipe. Half a box of dates cut up. Pour over 1 cup of boiling water. While still warm, add 2 teaspoons of butter, 1 cup of sugar, 1 egg beaten, 1½ cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of soda, scant, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, half a cup of nut meats, and vanilla. And that's from Mrs. George Hincliffe. But notice how it's not telling us how to mix things together. It doesn't tell us how long to bake things for. It assumes you know that, because remember, back then, if you were the one who was preparing food for your house, I'm going to assume it was mostly the women, that they don't have to tell you how to make a pie crust. You already know how to make pie crust, because it's assumed. How else would you live if you did not know how to make bread and pie crust and roast meat and make soup? So it's assumed that you already have a working knowledge of domesticity and how to make things. So these recipes don't have a lot of information. I don't know why that really amuses me. There's something here called grand muffins. I do not know what's grand about them, but cream a 1/4 cup of butter with a 1/2 cup of sugar, add 1 well-beaten egg, 1½ cups of flour mixed with 2 heaping tablespoons of baking powder, 2/3 cup of milk, and a pinch of salt. Bake about 25 minutes. Miss Edna Leasley. Yeah, I can't even figure out what that would taste like. It sounds almost like it's a buttermilk muffin, right? It's not like a blueberry muffin. It sounds like it's more like a biscuit or something like that. And there is a cinnamon roll recipe. Now I think probably we could agree that cinnamon rolls are one of the ways that heaven is experienced here on earth. Yes, a really good, warm cinnamon roll. And this has all of the instructions. This is one of the longest recipes in here. So I'm going to share it with you, and we can have dreams of delicious cinnamon rolls together. So you start off with 1 cup of milk, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 a cake of compressed yeast, 2½ cups plus 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, cinnamon and raisins, although they do not tell you how much, they're just assuming you will know, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 2 tablespoons of butter, and 2 tablespoons of water. So we start off by melting the butter, brown sugar, and raisins. You scald the milk and add to it the sugar, butter, and salt. And I love that they assume we know what that means by scalding the milk. So we'll keep going. Stir until the sugar is dissolved. Cool the liquid to lukewarm and add 1/2 the yeast cake, which has been dissolved in the 2 tablespoons of lukewarm water. Sift the flour before measuring. Stir into the liquid combination enough flour to make it a thick mass and stir it vigorously together. Knead the remaining flour into the dough with the hands. The mixture should be quite soft, and only enough flour should be used to enable one to handle it easily. Place the dough in a warm but not hot bowl. Brush over the top with melted butter and cover. Let the dough rise in a warm place for 2 hours or until it has doubled in bulk. Turn the mixture out onto a lightly floured board and give it several quick punches. Roll it out gently to the thickness of about 1/4 inch. Spread with melted butter, brown sugar, cinnamon, and as many raisins as desired. Roll up the dough as a jelly roll and cut in 3/4 inch slices. Place them an inch apart on a greased pan and brush the tops with butter and allow to rise about 1/2 an hour longer. And then you bake it in a hot oven of 425 degrees for 20 minutes. And this is from Mrs. J. Nasher. Now, there is no conversation, though, about the cream cheese frosting. So I'm sure these were delicious, but where's the frosting part? But I think if you were going to be an overnight guest with the Nashers, you would get these cinnamon rolls, which would be awesome. Okay, here's one that I love. I love a good shortbread, even though I can't eat it anymore. I think most of you know I don't eat sugar. So I'm just fantasizing here with you guys. I'm not actually going to eat any of this stuff. But this is Scotch shortbread, 1/2 pound of butter, right? What's bad about that? 1/2 cup of confectionery sugar. Again, awesome. 3 cups of cake flour and a pinch of salt. So you mix the butter and sugar, add flour and salt, flatten it into a cake, score almost through in pieces as you would cut cake, prick with fork and sprinkle with granulated sugar. Bake in a moderate oven about 1/2 an hour in a buttered pie tin. Pieces should break apart easily. And this is Helen Cadieux Drinkwater. Fantastic name.
Kiddoo, Kiddoo. That's a fantastic name. Okay, we'll keep going. There is a recipe here called marshmallow gingerbread, and the woman who owned this book wrote in pencil, good, period. So I'm assuming she made it and it was good. And that's the other thing I have to say about this particular recipe book. It's stained, and you can just tell someone used it, which delights me to no end. So here's the recipe for marshmallow gingerbread. 1/4 cup of shortening, 1/2 cup of sugar, 1 egg, 1/2 cup of molasses, 1 3/4 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of soda, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 cup of sour milk, and 3 dozen large marshmallows. So you cream the shortening and add the sugar gradually. Add the well-beaten egg and the molasses. Sift flour once before measuring. Mix and sift flour, soda, cinnamon, ginger, and salt together and add alternately with the sour milk and mix well. Pour into a greased and floured pan and bake for 30 minutes. While gingerbread is still warm, split it carefully into 2 layers and place about 16 marshmallows between the layers. Then place about the same number of marshmallows over the top. Return the gingerbread to moderately hot oven of 400 degrees until marshmallows are soft, puffy, and brown. Remove from oven and serve at once. Size of pan, 1 7-inch square cake pan. And this is from Mrs. James Dunbar. And you know what else I'm remembering? I think a lot of you who listen may be close to my generation. How many of you remember having home ec class? And for you, the men who are listening, how many of you had shop class? One of the things I remember as the girls had home ec and the boys had shop. That would never fly today. And I remember the home ec teacher would teach us how to sift flour and why it was important to sift flour. And I don't know, I just think that's so interesting because that would not fly today. But back in my day, in the olden days, that's what happened. There are quite a few date and nut bread recipes, so that must have been a big thing back then. Some of them use graham flour. Some of them have nuts, others don't. And then we come to an ad for a cooking school, and it says, ladies, take advantage of private cooking school in your neighborhood, the only cooking school of its kind in Chicago. Day and evening classes, Monday to Friday, all branches of fine cookery. Tuition is only $1 per lesson. We have same lessons 3 times a week. You receive a mimeographed copy of each lesson. All foods prepared are served to the pupils. This highly specialized course is intended for beginners, as well as the experienced housekeeper with considerable knowledge of cooking for cateresses, cooks, etc. Mrs. Antoinette Pope, directress of this school, has had the training of the finest American and European chefs. Only a limited number accepted in each class. So it's the Antoinette Pope School of Fancy Cookery. And I also should mention that the phone numbers for the ads are listed with the alpha in the beginning. You know how it would be, there would be the alpha and then the number. So the phone number is Stuart 2510. So, all right, then we get to the cakes portion, which is amazing. I just want one of everything here, but I'll find a few good cake recipes to share with you. Okay, we'll start with brown sugar cookies. So 2 cups of light brown sugar creamed, 1 cup of butter creamed, 1 teaspoon of soda dissolved in half a cup of warm water, 2 eggs well beaten, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Enough flour to make soft dough, sprinkle with sugar, and put in hot oven. That is the totality of the instructions. Again, assuming you know how to make cookies already. I don't know why that makes me so joyful. Because again, you would have grown up cooking with your mother and your grandmother and your aunts, and you would somehow know how to do all of this stuff. So I guess the part that delights me is this assumption that I would already know how to cook. But I don't even like to cook, so I don't know why it makes me so happy. But I don't know. It's a different time. It's the Wayback Machine. A different time and space, right? There are chocolate cookies, because who doesn't like a good chocolate cookie? 2 squares of chocolate, half a cup of butter, 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of flour, 3 eggs, 2 tablespoons baking powder, half a cup of nuts chopped, half a cup of boiling water, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Melt chocolate and butter, beat eggs, add flour sifted with baking powder and sugar, add melted chocolate, nuts, vanilla, and boiling water. Bake 10 to 15 minutes in a moderate oven. For frosting, because thank goodness there will be frosting involved, 1 tablespoon of butter, 2 tablespoons of cream, and powdered sugar. They don't tell you how much powdered sugar. Again, it's assumed you know what you're doing. We now have a recipe for a foolproof chocolate cake. Now that's my kind of cake. Foolproof would be good. 1.5 cups of sugar, 1/3 cup of butter, 2 eggs, 1 cup of sour milk, 1.5 cups of flour, 2.5 tablespoons of cocoa heaping, 1 teaspoon of soda, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Cream butter and sugar, add 1 whole egg and yolk of other, well beaten. Sift flour, baking powder, soda, and salt, and add to mixture alternately with sour milk. Add vanilla and bake in a greased square tin, 375 degrees Fahrenheit oven for 25 to 30 minutes. And this recipe is from Mrs. N.E. Van Stone. There is an ad here for a recipe book, Chocolate Recipes, to send for our magnificent new cookbook. It's just off the press. Our magnificent new book of Baker's famous chocolate recipes. It cost thousands of dollars to prepare. The most complete book of chocolate recipes ever written. 64 pages, 20 tempting color photographs, 143 recipes. The prized chocolate recipes of all times. There are gorgeous cakes with luscious frostings for those times when you serve just refreshments. Delicate light cakes and small desserts, one to follow a heavy meal. Simple but delicious everyday desserts, ranging all the way from a glorified bread pudding to a simply heavenly souffle. And of course, there are cookies, candies, frozen desserts, and beverages galore. This handsome book was 2 years in preparation. It is yours for only 10 cents. Okay, I love the title of this. This is Lady Golden Glow Cake. A Lady Golden Glow Cake. First of all, God bless whoever named this thing. What a great name, right? Lady Golden Glow. Sounds like the name of a folk song. Okay, we start off with 1/2 cup of butter, 1.5 cups of sugar, the grated rind of half an orange, 4 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 cup of milk, 2 egg yolks, 1 egg white, 2.5 cups of cake flour, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1.5 ounces of melted chocolate. You cream the butter and sugar and orange rind. Add beaten egg yolks, sift together flour, baking powder, salt, and add alternately with milk. Lastly, fold in beaten egg whites. Divide batter into 2 parts. Add chocolate to half of it. Bake 20 minutes in moderate oven. I bet that would have been a very stunning, beautiful cake. Oh, I guess there's filling and icing. Hold on. I think this is all part of the same recipe. So, because it just goes into filling and icing. So, 3 tablespoons of melted butter, 2 cups of powdered sugar, 2 tablespoons of orange juice, the rind of half an orange and pulp of 1 egg white, and 3 ounces of chocolate. So put butter, sugar, and rind and juice of orange into the bowl. Cut pulp from orange and add. Beat all together until smooth. Fold in beaten egg white. Spread this on top of the cake and sprinkle with grated chocolate. To remaining icing, add 2½ squares of melted chocolate and spread between the layers on sides of cake. Interesting. Okay, this is from Mrs. R.L. Parrish. Yeah, I'm not quite getting how that works, but okay, 2 parts, right? So you have, I guess one of the layers is white cake and the other layer is chocolate cake. And then it has chocolate icing in the middle, but it has this orange icing on the top. I think that's how it's supposed to go. Oh, how about whipped cream cake? Who doesn't like a good whipped cream cake? 1 cup of heavy cream, 3 egg whites, 1½ cups of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, 2 cups of sifted cake flour, 3 teaspoons of baking powder, half a cup of cold water, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Whip cream stiff, fold in stiffly beaten egg whites. Sift all ingredients dry together and add alternately with cold water, folding in lightly. Fold in flavoring. Bake in 8 by 12 cake pan at 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and when done, spread with the following topping and place under slow broiler until slightly brown. So the frosting is 6 tablespoons of melted butter, 10 tablespoons of brown sugar, 1 cup of shredded coconut, and half a cup of broken nut meats. So you mix that all together and spread it on the cake. Oh my God, that is so much sugar. 1½ cups of sugar, and then 10 tablespoons of brown sugar. That's a lot of sugar. There are a ton of desserts and cookies and cakes in this particular cookbook. We have strawberry mousse, so 1 box of crushed strawberries, 3/4 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of Knox gelatin, 1 tablespoon of cold water, 1 cup of whipping cream, and 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. So you mash the strawberries very thoroughly or rub through a sieve, add lemon juice and sugar, soften gelatin in cold water, and dissolve by heating it over boiling water. Add to strawberries and chill. Fold in whipping cream and freeze in icebox. There's something called roly-poly that I don't know what it is. I just like the title, or the name of it, roly-poly. So it's half a loaf of dried bread cut up, 3 cups of milk, 2 eggs, 3/4 cup of sugar, salt, and vanilla. So it sounds kind of like a bread pudding. Soak bread in milk about 1 hour. Add sugar and beaten eggs, raisins if desired. Add salt and vanilla. Butter a baking pan. Put mixture in and dab with butter and cinnamon. Bake in a moderate oven for 1 hour and serve hot with hard sauce. I don't know what hard sauce is. They're assuming I know. I'm sure it's delicious. I like a good bread pudding. Again, back when I ate sugar, I was a bread pudding fan. And I also just have to share that throughout this section of the cookbook, the woman who owned it kept writing try next to the recipes she wanted to try. So one of them that she wanted to try was grand cherry pudding. So 1 can of sour cherries, 1 cup of sugar, boil together 4 or 5 minutes, and then you make a batter. with 1 cup sugar, 1 cup of flour, 1 egg, a dash of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 3 tablespoons of milk, and 3 tablespoons of melted butter. So you put the cooked cherries in bottom of square pan, cover with batter, and bake in moderate oven 25 to 30 minutes. Serve hot with whipped cream. Well, that sounds good. All right, here's one that sounds good because I'm a fan of peppermint. So this is a peppermint icebox cake. A half a pound of striped peppermints. And is it just me, or anytime you think of striped peppermints, can you already smell them? It's like I already see them and smell them. So a half a pound of striped peppermints, a half a cup of milk, 1 teaspoon of gelatin, which you soak in cold water, a half a pint of whipping cream, and 2 egg whites. So you put the peppermints and milk into the top of a double boiler and stir until mints are dissolved. See, they didn't have microwaves then, because that's what we would do now, right? Add the gelatin and stir until it is dissolved. Remove from fire and put it into the refrigerator to cool. When cool, add the egg white, which have been beaten with 1 tablespoon of sugar and the whipped cream. Line a mold with lady fingers and pour the peppermint mixture into the center or alternate layers of the lady fingers and the peppermint mixture. Let stand in the ice box for 10 or 12 hours. All right, how about apple dumplings? This has a try next to it. Make a biscuit dough. Again, let's assume we know what that is. We know how to make it, because that's where we're going. Make the biscuit dough. Cut in squares and fold in each square peeled apples. Fold tight. Then drop in following mixture while boiling: 2 cups of granulated sugar, 4 cups of water. Add to suit taste cinnamon, large tablespoon of butter, and vanilla. Bake in oven 30 minutes for 350 degrees. Oh, I see. We're dropping the biscuit dough with the apples into the boiling concoction that includes 2 cups of sugar and 4 cups of water. But how long do we put them in there for? I don't know. But I don't know. And it sounds a lot better than the Weight Watchers apple turnover recipe that I shared with you recently. If you know, you know. We're now in the pie section. There is a butterscotch pie. I am a huge fan of butterscotch stuff. Like butterscotch, pretty much anything, I would be happy. So 3 teaspoons of flour, 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, 1.5 cups of brown sugar, and 2 cups of boiling water. So you mix and boil until thick. Add 2 well-beaten eggs. Add 1 teaspoon of butter. Fill individual pie crusts and cover with stiffly beaten egg whites and brown in oven. See, notice here how they're assuming we already have the pie crust handled. Like pie crust handled. We're not even going to tell you how to make it, because if you are the woman of the house, you already know how to make your pie crust. I don't know why that makes me so happy. It just makes me laugh. And then we have a bunch of pumpkin pie recipes. So this one's an easier one. 1.5 cups of pumpkin, 1 cup of brown sugar, 2 eggs lightly beaten, half a teaspoon each of cinnamon and ginger, 1.5 cups of top milk or thin cream. Combine all recipes and place in an unbaked pastry shell. Again, you'll know how to make that. Put dots of butter over top. Bake for 45 minutes in a slow oven. All right, and then we get to entrees and luncheon dishes. And oftentimes I don't share these with you because I know we have a lot of vegetarians who listen. So I try not to do things that involve meat. But here's one. This is a macaroni loaf with mushrooms. So 2.5 cups of cooked macaroni, 2 cups of grated cheese, 2 cups of soft bread, 2 tablespoons chopped parsley, 2 tablespoons of chopped onion, 3 small pimentos chopped, 1 cup of melted butter, and 2 cups of scalded milk, 6 eggs well beaten, the whites last. So the method is bake 1.5 hours in loaf pan, standing in pan of water. Serve with mushroom sauce. And the mushroom sauce is 2 pounds of mushrooms cut and simmer in butter and a little water. When tender, add cream, a little flour, salt, and paprika. It serves 9. Mrs. L.W. Tatke. So I don't see things as macaroni and cheese. I just see macaroni loaf. So here's another one. So 1 package of cooked cremettes, 1 cup of grated cheese, 1 cup of soft breadcrumbs, 1 tablespoon chopped parsley, 1 tablespoon chopped onion, 1/3 cup of melted butter, 1 cup of scalded milk, 3 eggs well beaten, and 2 pimentos cut fine. So in this one, you bake it in a flat pan set in hot water for 1 hour in a slow oven and serve with mushroom sauce. So there are 2 different variations of that. So that must have been a pretty famous recipe back in the day. And then we have an ad here for Jane Ann Homemade Products Salad Dressing, Thousand Island French Dressing, and Sandwich Spread. Try the spread as a tartar sauce or toast for an appetizer, the Thousand Island with lettuce or canned asparagus, and the French with a combination of canned fruit salad or use it to marinate. So have you tried Jane Ann Orange Marmalade? Made from an English recipe, delicious on scones, hot biscuits, muffins, and hot cakes. And then we've got the vegetable section where I just zeroed it right into the sweet potato recipes. Right, like anything with sweet potatoes, and I am happy. So stuffed sweet potatoes. 6 large potatoes, scrub well, dry, rub with butter. Bake as usual. See again, assuming you know how to bake a sweet potato, which I think most of us know how to do, but I'm just saying. When done, cut lengthwise, remove pulp without breaking the skin. Mash the pulp, add salt, pepper, paprika, 4 tablespoons of butter, then 1 well-beaten egg, and, well, we're going to leave that out because it involves meat products. Return mixtures to skin, reheat, and garnish with watercress. Well, okay then. Then we have miscellaneous, so there are honey caramels, something called potato candy, 1 medium-sized baked potato mashed while hot, add 1 pound of powdered sugar and beat well, add 1 tablespoon of butter and 1 can of moist coconut, cream all together well and spread in a pan, melt 2 squares of chocolate and pour on top. Then we have English toffee. I love a good English toffee, which of course involves sugar, butter, vanilla, Hershey's chocolate, and chopped pecans, right? Everything about that I like. And then they have foreign dishes. So this would be everything that is considered a little bit exotic, perhaps. So peas à la Francais, a chickpea dish that is just, says in parens, Spanish, Russian tarts, a German almond cake, lentil soup, which is listed as German. And then there's an ad for Arts Candies, confectioners to Johnny Q. Public. Candies to tickle the nation's palate, sodas to quench the nation's thirst, special ice cream for the nation's gala days. If she's been mad and you've been bad, to make her glad, just call RAD 8939. I just think that's funny. If she's been mad and you've been bad, to make her glad, just call RAD 8939. Confectioners to Johnny Q. Public. All right, and I'm going to end our adventure here with ice cream because that's the best palate cleanser. And they have pistachio ice cream. I love pistachio ice cream. 1 pint of milk scalded with the rind of half an orange, 6 egg yolks beaten and mixed with 1¼ cups of sugar. Cook over the hot water until mixture coats wooden spoon. Drain through fine sieve. Add 1/4 pound of fresh peeled pistachio nuts and 1 ounce candied citron, ground and mixed with 1 cup of cream. When cold, add 1 pint of cream, whipped and tinted a delicate green with vegetable color paste. Freeze in freezer. From Mrs. Arthur Hay. So there you go. So this is our adventure with the women of the Ridge Service Guild, who apparently did a lot of beautiful service work for many, many years in this neighborhood in Chicago. So I just want to pay tribute to all of them who donated their time and their energy, their recipes, and showed up in loving service. So way to go. I pay tribute to all of you and to the woman who loved this cookbook. It's stained and there's notes, and I feel blessed to get to be the keeper of this now and to share it with you. So, my dear ones, I hope that you are now having literally the sweetest of dreams. Perhaps you are dreaming of pistachio ice cream or butterscotch pie. Thank you for letting me share these lovely, warm memories with you. I'm so deeply grateful for you. I look forward to connecting again soon. Rest well. Thank you so much. Sweet dreams.